What's up, baby dolls? I got another UFO here video for you. It's going to be great. Now, this one, friends, this is an interview between this gentleman named Randy. Okay, Randy, he was a Green Beret, and you have Jesse Michaels. Now, this Jesse Michaels, man, this guy, this kid's a weapon, man. He's a freaking genius. He's a crypto guy as well. I'm not sure which crypto he's actually into. But yeah, he understands crypto. He's a really awesome. He's like really smart. He's super tapped in. He gets these beast interviews. He's like this real type of entrepreneur. It's just one of those kids you're like, dude, he's just genetically different to all of us, right? But this interview is fantastic. I really advise you to check this out. So Randy, friends, he's a Green Beret, and he speaks about US advanced drones and stuff out here. He speaks about Area 51. I'm going to let him speak a bit about it, but he basically shares his story, and Jesse actually confirms that this guy did work, and in the US Army and stuff. Now, he went to this base. It's funny enough, it is exactly in line with every other UFO story. They're all consistent. There's US bases, like near Wright-Patterson, and then there's other ones out here. There's another one that he goes to. You go down this really long elevator. It's like really long. It's longer than you think. And then you go down, and there's alien tech hidden under base. And yeah, they got some stuff. He shares stories. There's like a floating orb. We saw a floating orb there. It's also interesting. He shares a story. There's a gauntlet. So it's like basically this thing that hits on your arm, and it can shoot out like these little pretty much hieroglyphs. These little hieroglyphs. And when he saw the hieroglyphs, it looked like another UFO researcher guy. He saw he saw a ship once, and had like these ancient hieroglyphs and stuff out here. So yeah, we'll get through it, friends. Pretty quite interesting. Let's go.
And they consistently report seeing UFOs showing up not only in and around nuclear assets, but actually in and around the plume of nuclear blasts and atmospheric tests. And a lot of these guys are older. So like, I think atmospheric tests were banned at some point mid-century, but like,
right.
So if this was going on at Area 51, you have to think that, that's got to be a very interesting place as far as maybe UFO activity as well.
Well, sure. And I mean, I always wonder too, because it's a great place to test technology because there's not a lot of eyes on it. So it makes sense that that's what they use it for. And obviously that's what they did. The SR-71, F-117 were programs I think were heavily tested out there. And then I'm sure a lot of the exotic tech is tested out there as well. But then there's also the stuff that we don't quite know what it is that's showing up, and I think it's incredibly interesting. And personally, I mean, being out there, so my role out there is to help as an opposition force for some units that are training for operations overseas, and that's about as deep as I can go into it. It's nothing super cool. It's fun, cool guy stuff to do for guys like us.
As you get to see, a lot of these guys, fans, they're not kooky. They're not kooky. There's been thousands of these now, literally thousands of these. Not everybody comes forth on camera because you got a lot to lose if you're on camera. If the wrong person's watching and they don't want you to talk, that's it. You're pretty much done. You and your family are gone out here.
Need context on this. Lou Elizondo is a guy who ran the official UFO investigation program under Harry Reid. It was called OSAP. Kind of, I guess, morphed into this program called ATIP, and he's since come out and kind of blown the whistle on some stuff around UFOs. And so, yeah, we're hanging out at his house, and he's going deep on how the sun.
Remember, friends, I made Luis Elizondo videos here. Luis Elizondo, that's the guy he's talking about. Okay, so Luis Elizondo, yes, almost feels like it's controlled disclosure. Feels like he's still working with the government. Very sus about it. That's him in the top right out here. And in the top right as well. So he's coming out. A lot of his language is like, oh, we don't know how to talk to the public yet. He's not a real whistleblower, man. He's not even whistleblowing. He still even talks to them. And he basically says like he alluded like, hey, they want to speak to the general public, us, all of us, and say, hey, what do you actually want to hear from us? Like, basically it's government psyops. They're like, hey, we don't want to tell you everything. We want to just tell you the minimum amount. Like, do you just want to be told that aliens are real and then we walk away and you leave us alone? Or do you want to be shown something? What's the minimum? And they want to do that without revealing their cards. They want to just hint and basically like tiptoe to the crowd and go, oh, like, if I told you aliens are real, you're going to go away, but without kind of hinting that there's bigger things at play going on here. Like, friends, we're going to go later on. You're going to discover as well, just to spoil some nice things for you. He'll speak about spirituality things, and Jesse Michaels on the right, he'll mention, like, of everyone he's spoken to, and everyone even in government who leaks, they get up to a point of information disclosure, and then they eventually will say to him and everyone else, this is very common, they'll say, look, if you knew what I knew, you would not be on the side for disclosure. Disclosure means to disclose that UFOs are real and what's going on. And then they lead to speculate. Like, literally, a lot of people said that. It's kind of spooky. Like, wait a minute. Like, what is this secret knowledge that is so fear-inducing to us humans that they're like, nah, we can't let people know? Is it to do with, like, you know, friends, even like ancient Islam, they call it the jinn. There's, we've always known about spirits, demons, and all these. We have different words out here, interpretations. A lot of these, they're tricksters. Yes, there's a lot of this. A lot of the things about Satan and Lucifer, all these, they're not so far off. This is the crazy part about it. There's something else out there. That's why a lot of people have these theories where they think that humans fighting, it's feeding some sort of energy somewhere. This negative energy is feeding off us. But I'm just going to take a real, like, philosophical bird's eye view. We don't know if, like, is this evil force part of just nature itself? God, creator? Is it just there? Is it yin yang? If God exists, it has to exist? Is it that? Or is it our creators put it there as, like, it's like basically like lighting a fire under the bum of humanity in terms of there's always something to improve. Okay, because basically, because we have this fear button, you know, we do barbaric things, like we kill each other, all these other sin, temptation, all these other things, right? Because we have that, we're always like looking to improve the next thing, right? Because we're trying to like get rid of disease, get rid of greed, improve things. I mean, even crypto, right? Crypto, perfect example. If humans didn't have this like greed and overpower control, we would never even made crypto. So it's something philosophically to think about. So is it a default state of the universe, or is it there to help us? It's almost like, well, if you're at the gym, if no one ever puts the weights on, okay, and you're trying to like bench press, you'll never basically get that time under tension. You'll never actually grow. Your muscles will never actually grow. Well, is that philosophically the same thing? Is this what we call Satan and the devil, all these evil spiritual things out here, dark forces? Are they part of that? Is that the equivalent, the spiritual equivalent of putting on the weights on us so we like get better over time, advance humanity, whatever it means? Okay, so let's continue.
Sun is this nuclear fusion reactor,
Sure.
and specifically how it works and stuff. And then all of a sudden we just see, it's hard to kind of place distance on these things, but we see this green fireball just shoot out into the sky.
What the heck?
And we're just like, what the, like, this couldn't be weirder as far as what we're talking about, who we're with, and seeing this happen.
So, dude, like I know for a fact, for me, since my experience, I've definitely seen more stuff than I mean, I didn't see anything before that. I never noticed. Maybe I wasn't looking, but now I see shit all the time.
That feels like the dirty little secret in UFO world, because it feels like a lot of people downplay their personal experiences because they want to maintain this like impartiality of like, I'm this perfect scientist.
Yeah.
But the more you notice the thing, the more it does start to happen to you. And the deeper you get, you have a couple of drinks with, you know, anybody in this field, they start to say, yeah, things have gotten kind of trippy once I've started to look into this, which makes sense, right? Like you have the video of like, you know, I think this like gorilla going across this video. And if you're not focused.
So he just speaks about this experiment where I think like there's like 30 people in a room and they're like, hey, you've got to keep your eye on this basketball. And like these players are throwing a basketball. And then like as they're watching the basketball, this man in a gorilla suit goes in front of the screen and it starts yelling. And then basically, and like, I think it appears for like 5 seconds. I think it's some experiment here. They've done this like all around the world. And this, basically they ask everyone at the end, what do you think about the guy in the gorilla suit? And something like out of 30 people, only like 2 people noticed it. Everyone's just watching the basketball, like was just hyper focused. Nobody even noticed. I think they're trying to count the number of things. They're given like a task, like check how many hands that the number goes that the basketball passed between hands. It's some experiment like that. But it's also interesting with this phenomenon, the UFO phenomenon, friends. Remember, UAP, that's like government word. They try to mix it. Oh, UFOs got this terminology. Dude, just get over it, you boomers, okay? We know aliens are real. We know aliens. We can't even call them aliens. Are they us from the future? Interdimensional, spirits and wisps. We don't know what the hell is going on, okay? There's just something's going on, extra dimensions. We're just probably like, who knows, 1% of what else is out there. Something very peculiar about these. Government agents, this happened to Luis Elizondo, and this happened to many of them, okay? Once they get what you call read in, so once the program gets revealed to you and you're like an insider now, they start having experiences, more paranormal, more UFO experiences. They start seeing stuff. They start seeing orbs, which is weird. Now, is it them, the others? They're like, hey, you've now learned about us. Just going to expose you a bit more so you don't freak out. Is that part of it? Or one potential theory, like even in that video I showed you, one of my Luis Elizondo videos, an orb just started appearing in his home once. Him and his wife saw it. This orb, literally this ball of light, just starts moving around. Is it UFO? Is it US government? Is it someone in the US government? Maybe they can control that. And they're like, hey, part of our like training or bootstrap program is when someone gets in, we send some of these orbs to their home, and if they freak out, we take them out of the program. It's like a test, you know, just to see, like, before we share with him heaps of other stuff, show him a bit, you know. If it's almost like if, let's say there's a drug dealer, and they're like, hey, maybe they've recruited some kid. They don't know if he's a cop or not. And so before they show them, like, you know, the shipment supply of all these things, maybe they just get them for like a month to just do like these little runs with like small amounts just to see if anything bad happens out here. Just give you it's something to think about, okay? Like, do we even have the technology and stuff out here? So it's cool to think about. Do you want to now hear about him going to the underground base? Let's go.
Into the training, we were doing really well. Me and this guy were doing very well. And we got pulled to the side at the end of the day on a regular training day. And we stayed after and we're talking with the cadre and instructors. And somebody else had come into the room, and we thought we maybe were just getting some extra stuff because we were doing well. And they ended up telling us we're going to go check out some foreign weapons. We went to another part of the facility, went to another building. In that building, we went into an elevator. We took an elevator down, which that was the first odd thing, is that it felt like we went down significantly further than like you would think you would. I mean, it was just awkward. It just stood out.
You went way underground.
I don't know if it was way, but it was further down than like a few floors, you know, so I don't know how far, I don't know how fast the elevator was going. I didn't know I needed to pay attention to it at the time. It's just something that stood out to me, that we were going underground. Yeah.
And these are pretty well documented now across America, you know, underground military facilities. And so, okay, so you're going underground. Did you know that there was an underground complex at Crane before this? Okay.
Absolutely not. Nope, wasn't briefed on it, didn't know about it, didn't have
So what's going through your mind at this point? You're going down underground in an elevator with these random instructors.
Well, at the end of the day, man, I'm a soldier and I do what I'm told, so I'm just following orders and just going, and okay, we're going to go here, go stand there, do this.
Let me just fast forward a bit, friends.
It just seemed more upkept.
Yeah, kind of state of the art.
It was very streamlined how things operated down there. So you could tell it was like very regimented. Just like you walk on this, everybody walked on the right side to go down the hall. Like people coming this way walked on their right. It's just, and there was like a line on the wall that you followed to different areas. You know how like the hospitals sometimes have like a line to follow to the emergency room. It was kind of that seemed like it was that. I mean, I wasn't 100% paying attention to that. I had observed it upon getting under there or getting down there. We moved through a security checkpoint, and then we started looking at some foreign weapons stuff, and they were telling us about some Russian and Chinese weapon systems that were captured. I don't want to go too into the details on this stuff. It's still within too kind of close proximity to that.
Sure.
That I don't want to go too far. But basically, it was pretty advanced stuff that they had been using that was captured, probably, I would assume, by agency types that were operating in the area and had come across stuff that it seemed exotic. It wasn't anything that would strike me as beyond what I'd expect us to find.
And his next part, he starts describing that they go through another hallway, and then you go through a SCIF. So they go in, and there's like this like super strict zone. That's what the government guys actually, before they get ready, and heard of the SCIF. It's a room where any electronic, everything, it can pick it up. So you have to go through this room, everything, like every single bug and whatever. It's like totally can't be recorded or whatsoever. They check all of these, like it's super top secret.
Check point area, a scan, and whatever else, right? Not uncommon, but seemed highly unusual for this. After that, we moved on down another hallway and got into an area that had a marking on the wall and said off-world technology.
It said off-world technology.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And so immediately my bells go off.
So there you go. They start seeing the words off-world technology. That's government word for alien stuff. They don't write alien tech. They're off-world, as in like not made from Earth. That's a lot of leaked documents and stuff. They're talking about this for like 60, 70 years. Off-world. Not made by human hands. That's what it means. And then he speaks about this floating ball.
The first object was a metallic basketball-sized sphere, and it was above a podium, and looked like it was just levitating above the podium.
Levitating above the podium. Mm-hmm. So there was space between the sphere and the podium itself.
Correct. And I remember at one point, like, trying to angle myself, like, what? How is that?
Do you think it could have been some sort of magnetic levitation? Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
But it's just levitating there.
It was just levitating.
Did it look like a prosaic, like this wood table where if you were to, touch it, it would act like a normal object? Did it look holographic? What did it look like?
That's a good question. What stood out to me was the way the metal looked. It looked unnatural.
So what do they mean by that? Well, the alloys that these Mr. Alien dudes make, it's not just one metal. They combine like many alloys together, and they have like different stuff, different isotopes. There's different like browns and grays, like stuff that we can't produce on Earth. And what's most interesting with this tech, as we've seen, friends, I made so many UFO videos here for you. I love them. This tech, it's responsive to the people touching it. So sometimes if an unauthorized person touches it, it disintegrates. Check that out for tech. So it can self-implode. So if someone, like if hands or like as biometrics touch this, this object that's not, I guess, doesn't have a security clearance, however it is it's doing the whole checklist itself, basically just like it makes itself into dust. That was one of the things. Literally just, that's crazy, man. Imagine you have like this Pokeball and like, hey, you're a soy boy. No soy boys are out. So a soy boy touches this Pokeball and it literally just like, just becomes dust. That's wild, right? They actually have that tech out here. But they probably don't exactly know how that stuff works, but they got that there. They've taken from all that down, the alien ships and stuff. Some of them have been left as a gift. That's one description, friends. One of the guys mentioned, I forgot where I heard this, but one of the ships was a government agent. They basically said in the desert, they saw the ship just came down, okay? The ship just came down. Mr. Alien dude got out of the ship. He just ran off. He just disappeared. And the thing was just in full condition. They just left it there. And obviously the government took it. So it's literally, that's a donation. It's like there's nothing wrong with the ship. There's nothing. It just pretty much just came down. Just literally just comes, lands out of nowhere. Mr. Alien dude comes out. He just like just does the bolt. It's like, hey, see us. It's pretty much, it would feel like philosophically as well, the others, what do you want to call them? Mr. Alien dudettes. It's like trying to push humanity, like, hey, stop blowing yourselves up. You can actually, there's other tech stuff out here. Like he's some charity technology. Yeah, hey, monkeys, come and try to figure it out. So it's cool to think about that too. Yeah, they're gonna speak about the hieroglyphs now, friends. This is pretty cool.
And he sees this UFO crashed into the side of a mountain.
Okay.
And it's the dead of winter and there's some Air Force officers present. And he sees on the rim of the UFO these hieroglyphic symbols.
The UFO had crashed into this field and there was snow and the dirt was all turned up and stuff. And the UFO itself was stuck in the side of this big embankment. In one of the photos, I could see these symbols that were all around the base of the dome. And I took out the yellow pad and I opened it up to the inside cardboard of it, and I slid it under the microfiche machine, and I focused it so that I could see the symbols. And then I traced the symbols exactly, verbatim, all the way around the half of the dome that I could see. And I just I just traced all of them.
I saw that show, and what he had drawn is very close to what I seen. And also I want to touch on something else that this correlates with. Documentary that I saw on YouTube about DMT.
Yeah.
And these guys were doing experiments with DMT, and they found that everybody was seeing these same symbols when they shined a laser a certain way and kind of diffracted the laser.
Yep.
In a way that you do like the double slit experiment.
Yes.
And in the diffraction, they saw these symbols, and those symbols are the same.
That's fascinating. Yeah, Danny Jones does this amazing show on this, and these guys they're doing DMT. They're showing a laser in a specific way exactly to create this diffraction effect, and then their kind of interpretation of this is like they're seeing almost like the source code, like a binary code behind what we're seeing, which that sounds absolutely absurd. But if you take physicists like John Wheeler seriously, or people like Claude Shannon, who was really more kind of information theory, but like maybe the universe is more information theoretic at its core, and we are rendering it in real time. And maybe when you take DMT, you ascend into these higher states, and you can actually look at the source code itself. It's fascinating.
And what does it mean then if that source code is in the same language of whatever
you saw?
I saw on that device and whatever Danny saw on that craft?
That makes me think that these things off-world might be a slight misnomer, and it might be an interior fabric to the reality that we're in every day, or something even more fundamental to what we're seeing, or something.
Probably touching on something.
But when you're looking at these hieroglyphics, you obviously don't have the context of the Danny Sheehan interview or whatever.
Nothing at that point.
So what's the first thing that goes through your head as to like what this is?
Well, first thing is like, am I hallucinating, or am I seeing that? I was squinting.
That's very, very interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen, friends. So some guy on YouTube, it's on TikTok. They shine these lights, and I guess I missed this part. I guess they take DMT and they look at the lights, the laser lights, and they can see the matrix code. What the hell? What's going on here? They can actually see, it looks like this matrix coding. Now, look, can we get some logical rationale to these? I know it's crazy. What I'm about to tell you ain't very logical or rational, but it's a potential thing. So we know, friends, all our consciousness, we're like one hive mind. So we don't actually invent anything. We like download it from a stream into our brains. So that's why we call it discoveries. Like, hey, I've discovered something out there in the source of web field. I don't actually make anything. It's like it gets fed into your brain. Max Kaiser uses that language with Satoshi. Satoshi like downloaded something. Hey, I've got to advance humanity. And this has happened with a lot of technology. E equals MC squared with Albert Einstein. A lot of these, they're really like tapped in. Nikola Tesla especially, right? It's possible that the Matrix movie, the Wright brothers, whoever, the Wachowski, not the Wright brothers, the Wachowski brothers, I forgot. The people who wrote it, where the stories came from, they were channeling something. Probably they didn't even know what the hell they were channeling. I don't know. Matrix, the theories and the themes of the Matrix, the movie, right? Because remember, it's all about like blue pill, red pill. We actually live in this real world. It's kind of like I think there's something weird about that movie. We still talk about it today. This thing has changed. It's like it's woken up so many people. It's the real woke. It's almost like blue pill, red pill of life, right? Blue pill is go back to your little cocoon. The red pill, though, is, when you see Morpheus in the red pill, Morpheus, Matrix, the red pill, you understand that what's about to occur is you're going to have like that awakening. The classic part of the movie, Morpheus saying, which pill, Neo, are you going to take? Neo, the one. That is almost it. It's almost like it's a bit religious, spiritual. Remember Neo meaning the one. It's not like the one as in a male, like it's all us humans collectively. Do we want to take that blue pill, go back? But then we get, I'm going to show you later on as well, everybody who starts to get like closer, I guess, in government agencies to like learning what the phenomena is, remember, they always come back to this thing. They go, I don't want to disclose to humans what's actually going on. They go, we don't want to. Some of them are from religious backgrounds, typically Christian conservative, and they say these things are literally the devil. They are the devil. Just go back. You don't want to look at it. But then it makes you more curious, man. We're humans. We're like looking at like this little stick of dynamite. Hey, we're trying to tick it around and see what happens. Also, left field, how would society react if we did find out there is this evil jinn thing, dark force, whatever you want to call it? Its incentive is to get us to fight constantly, and it feeds off our negative emotion. What if it actually was true? By the way, that's not cuckoo talk. That's like thousands of years ancient stuff. They've been always talking about that. You know, friends, whenever we speak about this, I love, every single time one of you guys comes to my Telegram and you're like, hey, yeah, this guy wrote about this stuff 2,800 years ago in the ancient Hindu stuff, or ancient Hindu temples, or Sumerian, Mayan, all these. So they're very, very ancient human concepts. Like, we've known since the history of time to do that. But it's up to humans. Like, we know that was always we're trying to transcend these things. But yeah, how do you think humanity would react? Are people out there to react? Even then, it's weird because, like, well, the Bible, everything talks about that. But who would have the biggest head explosion? It's science dudes. I wouldn't have a head explosion. We would get warmed up to it, but it's the science dudes would have the head explosion because they would turn out a lot of science holds itself to like a very, very strict regimen, right? Because it's trying to advance humanity. It's a different standard, but then, but when this world, it just makes you so insignificant. It's like no matter how many tests you do, we're like so insignificant, right? You're gonna have to capitulate that you're not the smartest thing in the room anymore. Like, in another way to think about it is, with science, when they're testing something, they assume that they're testing something that is dumber than them, or that it's static. They're trying to find static things. Yeah, well, what if there's these things that's literally untestable from us because we're just like insignificant? That's what it leads these questions out here. Once you start to have this view, you kind of feel like, oh, I guess if I was a government, US government, trying to like keep the population at bay, there is absolutely no way you would go to admit to everybody any of this stuff. No way in hell. Let's go on to this next part where they go, reality might not be what you think.
What you're doing is a huge part of that. I mean, getting awareness out there about it, talking about it. Our reality might not be what we think, and we might have stumbled across this historically in the past, and it might have been bad then. You know.
Well, the point you're getting at, I think, is the fact that we're not alone in the universe is not the tip of the spear. That's not the thing that. It's funny. You hear reporters like Ross Coulthard, Jeremy Corbell, people who are honestly closer than people like me. I'm maybe a little more risk averse as far as speaking to people in and around the quote unquote legacy UFO program. And it seems like they always get to a point in the conversation at the end of the conversation where the person on the inside says, you would not be pro disclosure if you knew everything I knew. And I worry that there's actual merit to that. I do, because I think we're dealing with sacred spiritual things, ontological truths. And at least in the military context, you're talking about that in a using that in instrumental, weaponistic ways that are kind of not sacred, like for our kind of brutal, needs and desires and geopolitical realities. And that's weird territory.
Yeah, man, I think there's a lot of merit to that. There's things I wouldn't want my son, for example, to know. I wouldn't want him to know that that's a true part of reality. So what does that mean for everyone? I don't know. It's a tricky, slippery slope.
It's extremely tricky because, like, you drive around LA, you drive around any major city, Las Vegas, any major city in the US, and you look around, and from a kind of architecture, infrastructure perspective, most of these places have not been, they're crumbling. And they haven't been updated since the 60s and 70s. And now we have, it's interesting, the National Science Foundation officially coming out saying we're looking into extended electrodynamics. And that is basically this new paradigm in science that involves a scalar field, exotic electromagnetic wave types that get into, like, the works of Tesla, this kind of unknown guy named Thomas Townsend Brown, who's now probably being vindicated.
So this scalar stuff, I don't say the word scalar, friends. Scalar. The fact that these Neil deGrasse Tyson cuck institutions have dropped that word, you know everything is a scam. The word scalar. If you go play like any of these like old real-time strategy games, science fiction, Star Trek stuff, at the end of usually the levels, your biggest weapon upgrade is like a scalar gun. It's meant to be a theoretical gamma gun that we're not meant to make even as humans because the science isn't even like ready for it, like, you know, and then we're just basically you can do like EMP bombs, just blow electronic units and stuff out here. But we all know like government's doing it right now. It's kind of weird, like Science Foundation, hey, we're actually doing this scalar stuff. That's so weird because it's just like, you haven't invented anything in the past 20 years that is going to push us that way. How come you drop it and then you just doesn't take a genius to figure this out, okay? That's how they do it, friends. So they've already got the tech. They're trying to seep it into society now. That's what they do. We all know it's Coconut Intelligence Agency, the fancy bananas. Obviously, deep state, that's what they do. Is they go, hey, we got to seep this knowledge into society. We can't give them a shock that we have this. So let's send out the Science magazine, National Geographic, the Science dudes, the Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let's send out this knowledge to tell them, oh, we're actually making advancements. It's kind of like it's smoothing it over for the next 10 years. It's really, man, it's like, it's the definition of like helicopter parenting. It's like they're just so scared of spooking humans out here. It's kind of weird how it all works.
Indicated.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the ability to manipulate gravity through electromagnetism and do all sorts of stuff through, high speed rail. Let's bring the Concorde back with flight that, get to Europe in an hour or whatever. And so that's really important, right? That's important, and ontological truth is important. And then there are, risk factors as well. Mm-hmm. And so it's this weird technological forcing function where it can be really good and it can be really bad. So interesting. I mean, we talked about Diana Pasulka, this religious studies professor.
So cool, man.
She's amazing. Yeah. And she wrote a book about modern UFO phenomena as a religious phenomena. And she meant to write about it as a psyop, a psychological opera. She was like, I think this is probably all fake. Then she falls into it and she's like, oh my God, this is very real.
Yeah.
And it's this interesting thing where you stare at the abyss long enough, it starts to stare back or whatever. You fall into it. And she's like, oh my God, this becomes real, and almost realizes that what we are looking at now is what a lot of divine contact experiences have been in the past. And she talks about St. Francis of Assisi, who sees this flaming torch, orb thing on Mount Laverne in, I think, 12th or 13th century Italy. And it's, to him, it's this forcing function towards God. Yeah. And he actually has what seems like electromagnetic radiation as a result of this experience, what we would now call that.
Yeah.
And then actually writes in his diary, the last thing he writes is the Greek letter tau, which means conversion. And so it's like this it's like he had this angelic experience, and it's this forced conversion to Christianity. And then it's called the stigmata, because there was a stigma around his experience. And they talk about modern UFO abduction cases, there's this big stigma, and there's this desire to not disclose. And this, it's so...
friends, that lady that he just spoke about, I've watched some of the interviews with him. So her name is Diana Pasulka. And I think she went on Joe Rogan. I can't remember, but yeah, this is her. Yeah, so interesting, this interview. It's quite deep, spiritual and stuff out here. So she wanted to write a book. She's like, you know what? All this spirituality, religious demon stuff. She goes, it's a full psyop. It's meant to control humans. I'm going to go research it. What do you think happens next? She goes and researches it. Now she's scared. That's the funny part. I'm serious. She goes and she researches it, and she finds out a lot of these demon religious stuff. She said the deeper state scientists and government workers are really scared. They're all like deep religious. All of them. And she said, interesting, the further they go, the more religious they are. As in, the more knowledge they have, they go, oh yeah, this thing's totally real. Okay, so it's crazy that it comes out from the perspective of also in the Bible, there's some things that can be interpreted as like sometimes some people say with Jesus and there was a star above the manger when Jesus was born. Some people say, oh, maybe it's a UFO star, but there's actually more. There's things that might correspond to being radiation poisoning and things out here, which what happens. That's actually, if you want to know, a lot of the reasons UFO experiences, whenever like Mr. Humans, whenever we say, hey, I want to hug you and touch you, and they're always like, you can't, man. It's for your own safety. Like, it's pretty much, there's always radiation poisoning when people come down. There's that one guy who got abducted. I think he was the guy, he actually had sex with the alien. When he came back, he had a watch. So, not just him, this happens like in abduction cases. There's been like hundreds of these, thousands of these, okay? They come back, their watch doesn't work. Their watch is like spinning weird times. It's just going nuts. Their compass, actually, I think their watch comes back, but the watch is off. The watch time is like slower, or I can't remember. The watch time basically different speed. And the compass, if they had a compass in their pocket, compasses near them go nuts. So their whole electromagnetic radiation around them, just their waves are North Pole, South Pole, just go nuts. And it happens for like a week. Also, when they come back, they can't sleep properly. They're nauseous. It's almost, there really is some sort of radiation poisoning of some sorts. They basically, it kind of makes sense, right? Dealing with all this tech stuff out here. But yeah, that's another reason why, hey, aliens, why can't you come down and hug us? It's like you going to the Sentinel Island, you know, the little island where they have the still spears off the Caribbean of in India or whatever, where they have literally no technology. If you go there and you cough, just coughing once, you literally just wipe them out with like cuties and stuff out here. So that's what I'm just shedding some light on. So yeah, let's continue a bit more.
Yeah, I especially like a lot of the stuff she talks about when she talks about all these people that have been key contributors to like rocketry and the way that they got their ideas, and that's wild, man.
Yeah, that the fathers.
Like, what are we missing? Like, what do I need to be doing that I'm not doing? You know, like that's kind of shit I started digging into, and you know, I mean, there's something to it.
Well, whenever somebody's doing something kind of trippy or unconventional, but they're also a key contributor in a conventional sense to a core program or capability, you have to look into that. And so in this case, the fathers of all of the space programs, American space program is a guy named Jack Parsons, founded Jet Propulsion Labs. The Russian space program, a guy named Tchaikovsky. And then the German space program, Werner von Braun. All of these guys thought that they were in touch with non-human entities, and they were doing... Tesla's a great example too. Tesla said that he communicated with extraterrestrials in Colorado. So yeah, you have to start maybe taking some of these things seriously. And a lot of these guys say that is actually essential to our, you know, their ability to actually work in these rocketry programs. And so this guy named Tim Taylor, who is a modern NASA mission controller, works with Elon Musk.
Right.
I've met this guy. And I actually am invested in a rocket company, and I was it was struggling. And I was like, man, how do we get this thing to work? Because he's this famous NASA mission controller. I was like, can you give me advice or whatever? And I was grasping at straws. And he goes, you have to think about what they want as far as how to get the rocket to work. And I was like, you mean like non-human intelligence? Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I'm listening to this guy. I'm like, is he psyoping me? I don't know.
Yeah.
But he's a real NASA mission controller.
Yeah.
Works at the highest level.
Well, dude, look at all the names of the programs.
Right.
Like that should tell you something too, right?
Artemis. And
start looking into that.
The iconography, the second century Latin writing.
Exactly, man.
Yeah, a lot of the NASA stuff, and they're all like ancient Latin, demon spirituality, religious stuff. There's a guy, I don't know if you guys have watched this. There's Danny Jones. There's this one interview. There's like there's this nerd Jewish looking guy. He's really old. I think he's really old. He was really, really, really arrogant. I forgot his name. He came out. He's like so arrogant, but he knew his stuff. And he said, the Coconut Intelligence Agency, he goes, yeah, I'm the guy that they call. I'm the one who contributes all their... I taught them basically how the UFO stuff works. I wrote all the papers and stuff for them. I've been doing it for forever. And at the start, like, it takes a while to kind of like warm up to him. He just sounds absolutely like a nutcase. But he shared a story where he said, this story is so weirdly unique, where you're like, and by the way, it's happened a few times before, people. It's just so crazy. So he said when it was like, I think I forgot the exact age, like it was like 12 or 16, somewhere like 12 to 20 years old. I forgot the exact age. He got a phone call and he answered the phone and I forgot the exact voice he said he heard on the phone. He said he heard maybe like some weird static. And it was basically, there was this weird voice. And I think it was basically him. It was him from the future. It was really, really spooky. He said this story. It's like him from the future. And how he interpreted all of this was, it was basically him from the future giving himself a hint onto what to go look for to make advancements for this stuff. In terms of like how the UFO ships fly and all this stuff. He's like a real like science, astrophysics type of nerd guy. But it was so weird. And like how he interpreted it, he goes, that was them talking to me, and I was like the plant. I'm like, hey, plant, what does that mean? Like, they planted some knowledge. I was like the vessel in terms of like, hey, I'm going to advance humanity now. I've been given like the tick. Like, I'm the one who's going to go basically make progress somewhere here. But it's weird. You hear this one story, and you're like, oh, well, it's amazing. And then you sit on it sometime. Then I start showing you stuff like this, where Nikola Tesla, he said, yeah, I talk to extraterrestrials. You're like, wait a minute, bro. You're like a genius, Nikola Tesla. And the others, yeah. So it makes sense. Right? I remember I was talking to you about we got a singular hive mind, all our human consciousness. Yeah. And so I don't think we're all actually like real as individual as we think with our thinking. I don't think we are. Maybe we're individual with our hearts. Oh, I'm not even sure how we can conceptualize these. We don't even have the words for this stuff yet. We're still monkey brain. But it makes you think about that. Makes you think about, well, there is some sort of pool of information out here. We can't understand. It's in another dimension. Like we're all downloading this information at the same time. We've got to look at this mind link. All this stuff we can't comprehend yet. And it's like when it's time for us to learn something, they send that information to the pool, and some human out there just downloads it, and then we progress. So if you look at a lot of inventions and stuff out here, that it does make sense. It does, but that's kind of like what's been happening in the background. But you bring it out to a scientist, they go, "Oh, I can't test that. I can't prove that." Yeah, bro, of course you can't. You are a little monkey in the jungle, and you're watching a freaking airplane in the sky. You understand? Like you haven't even made fire yet. You're watching the airplane. You get it? Well, we're the same thing. We are the monkey watching the airplane. We haven't even made fire. And they're trying to like help us and throw us stuff along the way. So what do you think about that, friends? It's actually fascinating to go through a lot of these. I'm very confident. Yeah, you just feel this thing is ramping up. People are learning more, sharing more stories. The power of the internet. We're doing our own like bootstrapping, collecting of knowledge bases out here, and everyone's sharing stories, and not just sharing stories, but sharing experiences and things out here. And it ties in spirituality. I don't even know where this thing ends, man, because like is humanity ready? And by the way, how does a world look like where evil exists? Think about that. Does that mean every time you do a bad thing, it wasn't me, it's the evil force? Is that what happens? Is society even ready for that? We literally crumble overnight, almost as a society. We do. I'm not joking. Like the legal system. Okay. Did you commit that crime, or did the jinn get in you? How can you prove it was a jinn? How can't you though? We know it's real. If it's all powerful, how do you prove that? How don't you prove that? How much of it is free will? That's another thing. Where do we draw the line? What's now free will? Because these things are controlling us in the background. We don't even know we're being controlled. These are really advanced. This is like philosophical questions. Philosophers have been thinking about this for thousands of years, and like it's kind of like we're just seeing more and more pieces of information that kind of makes it's funny. The more you learn, the more you realize you actually don't know shit. Except we are going to confirm friendship. Like, subscribe, belly button, or catch you in the next one.